Well, I released a couple of videos on Internet Explorer for Windows 8, but here we're going to go to some even more advanced topics because there's been a new version of Internet Explorer 11 and customizing it and seeing how it works changed a little bit. Plus, it's got some really nice, neat new features and everything. So let's talk about it. To compare it, for example, if we go over here to the other IE that's on the desktop, it quite frankly does exactly the same thing. It has the same feature that getting to some of these settings is different within the one for the Windows 8. In Windows desktop version, you just hit on the gear and then go Internet Options, and you see all your different settings here. You can go one at a time like that, or you can go to Advanced and go over here and set all your settings. We're all used to that for many years now. So getting out of that and everything, and let's move this over here for a second and split our window. We're going to go back to Internet Explorer for Windows 8, and we're going to compare it. Again, its settings are a little different. Like normal Windows 8 applications, all your settings are in the charms bar on the right-hand side. So if we take the Internet Explorer as is and we look over here on the far right, we go up to settings, and there's all of our settings for Internet Explorer 8. So let's take a look at options here. We click on options, and now you'll see a whole bunch of different options. We'll see appearance. We'll sit there and say always show address. Now that's important in that it was always hard to find, or it would have to pop up when you right-clicked. Now you notice that tabs are now down here at the bottom along with favorites and all that. But what you can do now is if you go out to the options again and we slide this over, you'll see that they always pop up. And it's a little more advanced, and so it's really nice and handy to have. It's like having your tabs. So let's compare that for a second. Let's go back to Internet Explorer 8 for the desktop. And you see up here we have our bars and all that stuff, and we have the tabs up at the very top. We have the same thing down here. We have our address bar down here and all that. So we have the same functionality now. It's just been put down at the bottom of the screen. You know what I do like about it is while I'm down there, I can click on these things and take a look at my frequent stuff, my frequently visited sites. I can do that. I can sit there and manage my tabs right here. I can close a tab, add a tab, and all that just by using it down there. So I'm considering leaving it open. So let's go to a website here. We're going to take a look at that there, and we'll show how tabs work just like they do in the old Internet Explorer. If I go over here to the right-hand side and I look up here, there's the address I'm at, okay, and there's the tab there, and I click back and forth between tabs. Now over here, conversely, in the Windows 8 version, I do the same thing. I have two different tabs here, and I can close that one and still have the other tab open. Now there's a couple of more tweaks down here that we'll talk about a little bit later, but I'm going to go back to options and finish those off. Okay, we can turn that on and off up there like we talked about. The other is your zoom for your page. That's your typical zoom settings and all that. If you want a permanent zoom change, home pages, just like before, you can customize. You can say these are my home pages. If you have a current home page showing, you can add that just by clicking on that. If you click here and say that one, I want to remove it. I just click on remove it, and that removes that from your page collection. So when you fire up Internet Explorer, those come up. Well, then the next thing down here, this shows reading view. We're going to cover this a little bit later in detail because it's a completely different thing that's going on here, and I'll cover it in detail a little bit later in the video. I do want to point out, though, it has no effect to the size unless you go to a website like Microsoft here or MSN and you try to change that setting. It has no effect on this current setting here where you see a bunch of articles and things like that. We can actually go out to other websites as well. Again, we'll see that later. We click as much as you want and everything. It's not going to change the look of it right now. It's no matter which setting I choose or how I change it and everything, that's not going to happen. So with that, let's go back to the options again to finish those off. Let's go down here to history. You notice here it's how to do your history just like you would in Internet Explorer. You can say do these different things. Now, I always turn off cookies because I don't want to lose my cookies because it has maybe passwords and things like that, or at least your email address you used going to a website. You do all this stuff here. By the way, you can sit there and say you can keep your data for uh, favorites and all that stuff. What you want, you delete your history. So that's a little bit of a change. Hit delete, and sure enough, it'll say deleting, and there, data you have selected was deleted. So if we finish to go back again to our options and we scroll down a little bit further, now you'll see passwords. You can actually delete individual passwords. There was ways before you could only delete certain cookies and everything, but now you can select all the different sites you've been at and say, I don't want that password to be recorded anymore, and I can remove that particular one. So you have complete control over your password history, which I think is pretty cool. So if we go back in again to your options and go back there again, and we scroll down, we should see that under passwords that account is no longer listed there. It's been removed from your system. So again, back to options yet one more time and everything. We have another option here is phone numbers, and it shows you where that's displayed. If you're on a mobile device that has calling capability, or even if you have Skype built in, you can actually have it to where the numbers get read and interpreted into a clickable object, and you can go ahead and do that. The last setting is in fonts and encoding, and I wouldn't mess with this. It's set up for Times New Roman and different things. You can try to play with that till you get to something you might like, a smoother font, better, easier on the eyes and things like that. But for the most part, this setting here, most people won't even bother with this. So the next thing we're going to do is going to get out of options, at least that part of it and everything. We're going to go down to privacy, which is really an option, but they have it separate. It's become so important. Everybody's a little concerned about privacy nowadays and all that. So if you're really concerned, you should go in here and take a look. You can actually have your system set up to not track you. It's not mandatory that everybody follows that, but you can go ahead and have it set up at least so that the sites that do follow your request do not track your activity. Now I clicked on to learn more about it, so it'll automatically bring up this place you can go to learn a little bit more about how tracking is done and how you can actually block ad tracking, so you can be a little more robust in your refusal to provide content. There's ways to add these different lists that tells them to block. Now here's the way it was in the old Internet Explorer in this particular area here under the privacy. This is how you do it in IE 11. So just take a look at this, learn a little bit more about it. There's different lists you can sign up, and there's easy list and everything. At the very bottom, there's stuff specifically about Google, because Google has bypassed Internet Explorer's tracking. There's also Trustee at the bottom as well. So take a look to read to see if you want to turn on ad blocking. If you're a little paranoid about the ad blocking, or you don't really care because they're going to serve you up ads about stuff you've already searched on, read all this, decide it for yourself. So let's right click here, and I'm going to close this tab down and go back to the other tab we're at. I'm going to go over and look at the rest of the options. I'm going to go into this article here about the rescue ship for a second. But anyways, we come here to the next one after privacy, and there's the do not track stuff that we talked about. You can just say send do not track for everything. I leave it on all the time. Okay, again, they don't have to. Cookies, block cookies. A lot of sites won't operate if you decide to block cookies, but if that's what you want to roll, that's fine. Location tracking, now it just says that they'll let them ask. You still get to turn it off every time you go to a site that asks for your location. You'll still get that thing in the middle of the screen that says, do you want to allow it? And you can clear the list of those that are going to, that already ask your location. So when you go back there, they'll ask again. These are all different web services. Flip ahead, which is a nice little feature to predict the next page to be loaded in the background, so there's no problems with the speed and everything. Suggestions, smart screen for blocking stuff, protected media playback, and others. So take a look at these, read those, but it's all about privacy settings and everything that you can do. Now the last section we're going to talk about is accounts. This is basically the same way to get into it to where you had cookies before. You want to delete accounts for different websites and all that. So you'll be able to go in here and delete one of these. You just simply click on it and do the deletion that we talked about. So choose which ones you don't want. You keep the ones you want. You have ultimate control down to a granular level, which is pretty nice actually. Now that I've covered settings, I'm going to go to a couple of features that are hidden away that you're probably going to like a lot. Let's say you have just closed a tab. You had two tabs open and you went, oh damn, I closed the tab. If you look here, there's a couple of different things here, but one of them is reopen last closed tab. It's great. It brings back the website. You don't have to figure out where you were. You just click on that link and bam, it comes back up. Now the last feature I'm going to talk about, one I just skipped over earlier, and that's the reading mode. If you notice down here at the bottom, there's a little book icon when I'm inside of a definite article. Not a page of a bunch of articles, but just an article. If I click on that, when it appears, it clears away everything else, all the ads, everything else, and you can just sit there and go and read. You can go to the options now, as I talked about earlier or skipped over earlier, and configure your reading mode like you had a Kindle or another type of reader. And this only appears when you're in an article. If you go out of the article back to the page, the icon goes back, everything goes back to normal until you get to your next article. So it's really a nice way that you can have it. And you can, of course, swipe from left to right to left and read your article. It's a very nice way to browse through news without being distracted by ads. Now, just to show you, we're going to go from this article. We're going to go back to MSN, and you'll see that the book at the bottom has disappeared, and you can't click on it to do it in reading mode because you're not inside of the article. Now, I've tested this on only two sites, MSN and CNN, and it works on both sites. So the browser does detect when you're inside of an article somehow. So you can look around and see if your favorite site supports it as well. But again, another great feature if you want to leisurely stroll through your article. So there you have it, the tweaks added into IE 11, by the way, for Windows 8. Uh, Answers some of the questions about how to do all those different kinds of things in the advanced options. And it gives you a couple new features as well, some really exciting stuff. So enjoy Internet Explorer 11 and try it out. And don't forget to subscribe to Old Guy Geek. We have over 150 Windows, Windows 8, and Windows Phone 8 videos, and we're publishing more all the time.